Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Nadia and this is the place where we get real. And today is going to be a little bit more of a chatty video again. I want to kind of deep dive into female sexual pleasure and what men get just so incredibly wrong about it, and what actually a lot of women kind of convince ourselves about our own pleasure that is just so wrong, and it really sets us up for just total disappointment and just failure in every aspect of our sex lives. So if you want to have a better, more fulfilling sex life, and hopefully that's all of you, then please make sure you keep on watching. Welcome back to my channel.
Are you serious with me?
Oh my god! I don't understand how these things always happen to me. Before we get into today's video, I want to let you guys know a really simple way that you can support me and continue to educate yourselves about sex and become better lovers, and that is to subscribe to my totally free newsletter. Just go and hit the link in the description down below. It will take you straight to a sign up and you'll get lots of extra special exclusive insights, and you will be massively helping to support this channel, especially if this channel gets taken down again. By signing up to my newsletter, it means that we can all still communicate with each other. And as a special thank you for signing up to my newsletter, you are going to get a totally free copy of my ebook, Hack Your Sex Life, where I teach you very exclusive tips on how to have the best sex of your life. When I was younger and, I started having my first sexual experiences, something that really stood out to me very early on was the fact that I didn't find them very enjoyable. And I thought that that was normal because I'd never really been taught that sex was something that girls enjoyed. If you think back to sex ed in school, the whole focus was pretty much, besides the fact that sex was how babies were made, it was really focused around this idea that, boys enjoy sex. We talked about ejaculation and wet dreams and boners, and boys would make jokes around the schoolyard about wanking. Like, it just seemed like it was very acceptable and very normal that boys liked sex, and there wasn't really kind of like a section of sex ed where there was any kind of mention that it could be something that girls would enjoy too. We more learned about the fact that it was kind of up to us to prevent pregnancy from happening, and that, our bodies were going to endure painful periods. And, I also heard stories, as I think a lot of girls did, about the fact that losing my virginity was going to really hurt. So I kind of almost just related sex with pain in my own head. And so when I started having sex, I guess I didn't think anything of the fact that I didn't really enjoy it. It seemed more like something, I guess, that I was doing for someone else because that would make that other person like me or it would please them. But where I guess it really came to a head for me was one of my, first serious boyfriends. Every time we would have sex, my vagina would really hurt. Like, it would burn. And then after we'd finished having sex, I would run to the bathroom and I would go and sit on the toilet, sometimes for literally an hour, and I would just be hunched over the toilet, just like shaking in pain. There was just this burning sensation that was like searing up through my vagina. And quite often my boyfriend would come and he would knock on the door and he would say,
are you okay? Was there something I did that hurt you?
And I felt so bad. I felt like instead of worrying about my own pain, I was worried about how this might be hurting his feelings. And so I was like,
no, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, I feel so terrible.
And then I would just go and repeat it again and again and again. Obviously, it naturally started making me want sex a whole lot less. And so when my boyfriend would try to have sex with me, I would often come up with all sorts of different excuses for why I couldn't have sex. And we actually started having, a lot of arguments about sex because he was really unhappy. He felt that, I had shortchanged him as his girlfriend. He felt that it was my responsibility to provide him with sex. Being in my early 20s and not knowing any better, I felt that he was right. And it was my responsibility to provide him sex. So a lot of the times I would just feel so guilty. I would give in. Looking back, I now realize that that was sexual coercion. And that's not okay. If you have a partner that is pressuring and guilting and harassing you into sex, that is not okay. You shouldn't have to repeatedly say no to someone that you do not want sex. Consent should be the foundation of all great sex. And so just please know, if you're listening to this and you're like,
Oh my God, I recognize myself in that.
please know that it is never okay for a partner to do that. I wish I had known that then, but of course I hadn't learned, everything I now know about sex. And so, I stupidly felt that it was really my fault and that I was kind of letting the relationship down. Because I was having all this pain, I started going to the doctor and saying to the doctor,
There's something wrong with my vagina because it just keeps burning every time we have sex.
and so the doctor tested me and tested me and tested me. I got tested for every single STI, even though I'd only ever been having protected sex. I still got tested for every STI and I didn't have any STIs. And then eventually the doctor said,
Well, maybe you have a yeast infection, and so I'll give you some antibiotics for that.
and so I went home, I took the antibiotics, I had sex, it still hurt. And so I went back and I said, I don't think the antibiotics worked. And she said, okay, I'll write you a script for some stronger antibiotics, but just be wary. These ones are going to have some really bad side effects. So I took this longer, stronger course of antibiotics, and lo and behold, sex was still hurting. So I went back a third time, and this time she prescribed me a cream. She said, maybe you need a topical cream. And I went through the whole bottle and sex was still hurting. And by this point, I was getting pretty frustrated, and I felt that my doctor was, being pretty dismissive, and she hadn't really been investigating the problem properly. She pretty much was just prescribing me things every time I went in there without really asking me a lot of questions. So the next time I went back, I actually said to her, look,
You prescribing me stuff just isn't working.
so she did start asking me questions about my sex life, and we very quickly worked out that there was nothing wrong whatsoever with my vagina. I just was not aroused when I was having sex. And there was nothing wrong with my ability to get naturally lubricated because I would masturbate, and when I would masturbate, I could get myself very, very wet. So I knew that there wasn't anything wrong with my ability to get wet. It's just that I wasn't getting wet when I was having sex with my partner. One of the main reasons was because I didn't enjoy the sex. I related the sex to pain, and I related the sex to something I was doing for my partner, like a kind of service. And the reason I'm telling this story is because when I talk to women about their sex lives, I hear stories just like this. I hear stories that are basically different variations of women saying, I feel like I'm the worst partner. I'm always turning my partner down for sex, but I just don't enjoy sex. What is wrong with me? And women always seem to think that it's something wrong with us or our bodies, that our bodies are broken. Women come to me and say, do you know of any pills I can take to make myself have a libido? The old me, back in my early 20s, would have probably taken some of those pills, convinced that there was something wrong with my libido. But I now see there was nothing wrong with my libido because I did masturbate quite frequently. And if you have a low libido, you're not going to want to masturbate. So if you're masturbating and if you're having still sexual thoughts, and they don't have to be thoughts about your partner, that's a good sign that you still have a healthy libido. The reason you're not desiring sex with your partner, and the reason that a lot of women do not desire sex with their partner, and we make all of those excuses,
Honey, I've got a headache tonight. Honey, I'm just too tired. Honey, I'm just not in the mood.
the reason we say that is because we don't enjoy having sex with you. Now, I know this sounds really harsh, but if you want to start having better sex and you want to fix this problem in your sex life, then we need to get some really harsh truths out there. The fact is, the sex with my boyfriend back in my early 20s wasn't good sex, and so it made perfect sense why I didn't want it. And because I wasn't lubricated, the extra sort of addition to that was that it became painful sex, and then I related sex to being in physical pain, and so I was avoiding sex, which makes perfect sense. We avoid things that don't feel good, and we especially avoid things that cause us pain. We know from the research that up to 1/3 of women experience physical pain or discomfort during sex and do not tell their partners about it. The reason we don't tell our partners about it is the same reason I didn't tell my partner back in my 20s about it, because I didn't think my experience of sex mattered to anyone. I really thought that sex was something that I, as a woman, did for a guy. I didn't think that whether or not I enjoyed it was even like really important to anyone. It wasn't until I got older, and particularly when I started, exploring sex toys, and this is why I'm so big on recommending all women invest in a sex toy so that you can explore your own body on your own terms in your own way, that I really discovered how much pleasure my body could experience, and that actually sex was freaking awesome. So if your partner is consistently avoiding sex with you as a guy, or if you're a woman watching this and you're like,
yeah, I'm you in that story. I'm always trying to make excuses not to have sex.
please consider the fact that it's not because there's something wrong with you as a woman. It's not because your libido is broken. In fact, I bet if you went away now and tried to masturbate, you would probably be able to do it and probably be able to enjoy yourself. What it is that you're not enjoying the sex that you're having with your partner. And so often that's because men are taught that sex is all about penetration. And this basically completely ignores the way that the female body works. Penetrative sex is only something that can even be like have the possibility of being enjoyable to a woman if we are first very, very lubricated. I don't mean just like a little bit lubricated, like,
Oh, I'm starting to get a bit wet. I'm ready.
if a woman has a chance of being able to enjoy penetrative sex, she needs to be dripping wet. Now, there are two solutions to this. And of course, the first one is to just go out and buy some lube. I keep lube handy at all times in my bedroom, as you guys know, and I recommend everyone have some. But the second thing, and the more important thing, while I do recommend keeping some lube handy because women aren't waterfalls and there are times that we can be turned on and still the lubrication just doesn't happen for whatever reason. But the second more important thing is that you take time on foreplay. And the vast majority of men skip over or completely skip out foreplay because men have been taught that sex is about penetration. Sex is about a penis going into a vagina. But if you listen to women talk about great sex, I talk with women a lot. You have very intimate discussions with women about what great sex looks like. They don't talk about the penetration at all. They talk about the guy that was deeply, passionately kissing them, that the two of them just made out for like what felt like forever before they even started getting naked. They talk about the way the men caressed and touched and licked their body and how they just felt like a sexual goddess. If you as a guy are going straight to penetration, or you're having like 5 minutes of foreplay and then going to penetration, which is pretty quick foreplay, what you're really telling the woman is that
You're just here as a whole for me to use to get myself to ejaculate. Like, this is kind of one step up for me as a guy from just using my hand.
that might not be what you're trying to say, and I totally understand, for the majority of men it's not, especially if you're a good partner. But that's what we hear as women, because our bodies don't get attended to. Our pleasure doesn't get attended to. Women need foreplay and we need time to relax in order to enjoy sex. And that was what that sex back in my 20s never had. There never was any kissing. There never was any caressing and touching. So what I would recommend that you go away and try right now, maybe even after you finish watching this video, just get down to it, is that you spend at least 10 minutes fully clothed, not removing a single item of clothing, just deeply, passionately kissing your partner, like the way that you used to make out when you were teenagers and you first discovered kissing, and kissing was like the best thing ever. I want you to just do that. Do not take any clothes off. Now, you can touch each other's bodies. You can let your hands go wild, but let them go wild over the top of the clothes. And the reason I say that is because that builds anticipation. And when women have that feeling of anticipation, like you're touching our breasts over our clothes, we start imagining, wow, what's it going to be like when he touches my breasts under my clothes? And we start getting that excitement, and that excitement builds, you guessed it, lubrication, which is the thing we need to enjoy penetrative sex. If you just take our clothes off and touch our breasts, we don't have time to think about what it might be like to have you touch our breasts because you're already doing it. Women specifically are turned on cerebrally. It's our brains, that really need to get into gear. We know that overall men are fairly turned on visually, so a woman can strip naked and a guy is like, I'm horny, I'm ready to go. But for women, a man can strip naked and we're not necessarily going to be super horny. And that's because we need that cerebral engagement. And we're going to get that through our partners talking to us. So when, for example, my boyfriend takes the time to say things like, my God, you are so sexy. How did I get a girlfriend as hot as you? Like, how did this happen? When he takes time to tell me after we kiss, my gosh, your lips are so soft and juicy and delicious, I feel like a queen. I feel like a goddess. I start feeling so confident in myself that I can't wait to rip my clothes off and let him see me naked because I feel so great in myself. And when women feel confident in ourselves, the other thing we do is we let loose in the bedroom and we get kinky and we get dirty and we get freaky. The reason so many women don't get really freaky in the bedroom and, you know, we have quote unquote more boring kind of sex is because we're too busy worrying that we don't look good enough. And I know this frustrates men, and men say,
You know, I tell my wife every day she's beautiful and I just don't understand, like, why she has to be so conscious in the bedroom.
but it's in the bedroom that you need to repeatedly say these things. Not just you're beautiful, but really go into detail about what it is that's so attractive about your wife. Talk about the first time you ever saw her and set eyes on her, and what were those things that just drove you wild when you looked at her. If you think about the 50 Shades of Grey books, right? Now, it's pretty universally acknowledged and accepted that those books, the writing in them is terrible. I'm just going to say it. I'm a writer myself. I do not think E.L. James is a very good writer. I think it's very badly written. However, in spite of the very bad writing, which most people agree on, those books are worldwide bestsellers. And that's because they go into so much graphic detail in describing all of the romance and all of the sex. And women love this level of description. It really engages our brains and gets us, you know, fully mentally into gear. And so if you think about the fact that, you know, the more descriptive something is, the more women love it, then just apply that to the bedroom. So you as a man want to really be going into that detail with your woman. If you're a woman, you really need to cut yourself some slack. Stop blaming yourself for sex not being enjoyable. Start actually talking to your partner about what they can do to make sex more enjoyable and accepting the fact that you are allowed to enjoy sex. And if sex isn't working for you, that's okay. And you should absolutely speak up about it. Do not beat yourself up that you're not enjoying sex. Do communicate with your partner. Do have more foreplay and just give yourself time. And hopefully, if you apply a few of these things, you should start finding that sex feels a lot better. I can tell you that these days for me, sex feels amazing. And it's not because I'm using some sort of crazy Kama Sutra or special oral sex tricks in the bedroom. It's literally because I learned that I was allowed to enjoy sex, that I was allowed to not just ask for, but kind of demand what were the things I wanted in the bedroom. And I was allowed to get those things, and that I wasn't broken. There's never been anything wrong with my vagina. I just didn't know to speak up for myself. I hope everyone watching this can learn to speak up for themselves, communicate with each other, and just don't make sex such a serious thing because it's meant to be fun, you guys. I hope that this has been helpful. If it has and you're not subscribed yet, I would love you to support me and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up if you'd like to see more kind of deep divey, ranty videos like this. Or if you wouldn't, feel free to give it a thumbs down. I'll take that into consideration as well. And let me know in the comment section what your thoughts were on this. All right, guys, I will see you all in the next video. Mwah.